Hello and welcome to the Back Podcast, Australia's favourite gaming podcast, as voted on by us, the hosts of the Back Podcast, Australia's favourite gaming podcast. It's Monday, the 16th of May, 2022. I'm Nick Richardson, and today I'm joined by Little Will.
Yep, you are.
And Jess McDonald.
Hi.
Jess is back.
Jess is back. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me back. I'm excited to be here.
That's okay. Will, and it's okay that you're here as well. Okay?
That's good.
I'm
That's
excited
good. Yeah.
you're here
Okay.
too.
I'm excited. I'm here.
Good.
For those watching as a podcast, they will not know that what just happened is Will kind of hit every button possible in VMix all at once.
Yeah.
And so we saw a lot of titles, but that's fine.
It's just there's a lot of buttons that say 1, and there's a lot of buttons that say 2, and I pressed the one button that was not the one button. It was the wrong one. So that's what happened. Yeah.
It's
That's
tricky.
fine. That's fine. It's a flawed program. Very excited to have you back, Jess, on the show. You were, and don't tell the other guests, but you are one of our most critically acclaimed, audience beloved, and host approved guests.
Oh my gosh.
It's a delight having you back.
That's way too nice. Thanks.
What are you playing this week? What's caught your gaming eye this week?
When was the last time I was on? It was like a few months ago, I think. Maybe a couple months ago. I was playing The Witcher 3. I don't know if you played The Witcher 3. It's a pretty long game. I'm now 150 hours in. And I just finished the Hearts of Stone DLC in a subathon last weekend. I played for 17 hours straight. It was fantastic. And now I'm just about to start Blood and Wine. So that's been great. That's the main thing I've been playing. And it's absorbing my entire life. Yeah. Well, I mean, when you start this late, you just really have to tuck in. And I did all the question marks in Skellige too. That I need to tell people. I want people to know that. That's hard.
That's
impressive.
Well, because I remember when the Blood and Wine DLC I think is my favorite. It almost is like
it's huge.
I mean, it's like its own game. It's just a Witcher vampire game, but it's dope. Like it has such a great story in it.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Well, that's super impressive that you're still making it through that game. But we are very excited to have you here. And Will, I feel like we're going to move on with this because, as you know, the news is not going to break itself.
No.
The Backup is presented by one of our top-stitch patrons and the best evil person we know, Phil Spencer, for single-handedly ruining my gaming fantasy draft by delaying Starfield. Evil Spy Boy. Get your exclamation mark Spy Boys out in the chat because thanks to his generous Patreon support, Evil Spy Boy is bringing you the backup. And he's hoping you bring the generosity to Food Bank Australia. We've spoken about it before, but Food Bank provides regular breakfast to more than 132,000 students across the country. And on top of this, more than 200,000 kids seek food relief from the charities every single month. If you have $1 to spare, consider giving it to Food Bank. Nightbot has the link, and head to tasteofmultifish.com for more information on Evil Spy Boy's proclivities. Let's back it up and look at the biggest stories of the week. As voted on by us, the host of the Backup, where we back up and look at the biggest stories of the week. Jess, you are our guest. Please start us off with a story this week that made you say, hey, that's a pretty big story.
Okay, this is a huge story, except for one tiny little part of it. So EA, giant company, has made many beloved RPGs, many beloved games, right? They are making a Lord of the Rings game. Holy crap, EA Lord of the Rings. Perfect. They've made Lord of the Rings games before. Excited to see them make another one. This is supposedly a role-playing game. It's turn-based. I love turn-based games, storytelling elements. It's going to have characters from Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit as well.
All the words we love.
Oh my gosh, everything that you want. It's also a mobile game. We'll bury the lead a little there. But look, some people like mobile games. That's fine. People like Pokemon Go. I do believe it sounds like it's going to be one of those collectathon kind of mobile games. I guess if you're really into Lord of the Rings, it's nice to have something to play on the go. This that we've got up on screen right now is all they've released. It's a lovely painted landscape. Telling us that something is coming, but we don't know anything else about it yet, other than it's going to be free to play. Hopefully not nasty on the microtransaction side, but we don't know anything about that yet. And they're doing a limited regional beta test for the game, which is called Heroes of Middle-earth this summer. So this summer, it might be this winter for Australians. But yeah, so, pros and cons.
With something like this, because I mean, speaking of The Witcher, let's combine your interests at the moment, and that's this story and the game that you've been playing for the last 7 years, and that is that The Witcher put out a version of a game like Pokemon Go, like one of those collector things, and it didn't seem to hit in the same way as Pokemon Go does. Do you think that Lord of the Rings has more potential?
Well, I think didn't Harry Potter do one too? And it was like the idea is there. Pokemon Go, the reason I think that did so well is it really scales back on the microtransactions. Once people read any of those games as insidious or like really trying to penny pinch, you just lose all the goodwill from the consumer base, and it doesn't even matter, I think, what the attachment is to the underlying lore or what the property, the IP is at that point. It's basically the design of the game, whether it's consumer friendly or it's not. And I think the success of this will depend on that. Hopefully EA have, they've been in a situation a lot of times with a lot of different games of getting in hot water for some of their microtransaction practices. So hopefully they've learned hard lessons, and this won't be like that. And fans of Lord of the Rings can get that experience without experiencing the nasty little microtransaction bits and pieces.
Yeah, totally. I feel like one of the other things with the success of Pokemon Go was that it basically just took the mechanic of Pokemon and made you the main character. Like it is like the point of Pokemon is throwing Pokeballs and catching them and collecting Pokemon. Like that's what the actual game is. And so then you just get to kind of play as that character. Whereas the point of The Witcher is to brood and wander the countryside and kill these animals as opposed to like collect them and sort of like build up a book of... And the same with Harry Potter. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Will, do you think that these like big franchise games always just carry so much more burden when they move onto a mobile platform as opposed to like a small game that can take the world by storm?
Totally, I think so. And we'll be talking about another IP kind of related game in a second. And anytime it looks a little cheap, it's like it feels even cheaper because it's like they've already got you in by the thing you love. So when they don't put the effort in, it's like, oh, you think I'm going to stick around just because there's a ring. And I'm not in the Lord of the Rings. I know there's rings and lords and stuff, but
wow, you are really not into Lord of the Rings.
No, and you know, if this is a really good game, which it won't, is on mobile, it's a tricky part. It could rope me into the world, and like you say, if it puts you into the shoes of a character in a mythical world in your phone, that could be quite cool. But yeah, I do think it's hard to nail an IP game, especially on mobile. I'm not of this realm.
Isn't it funny to think that the 2 Lord of the Rings games we're getting in the next 24 months are this collectathon mobile game and a game about Gollum? That those are the 2. It's nuts that there's not the Gollum game. Like the Gollum game is coming, which is it's so weird. It is such a strange take. But we'll have to see how it goes. I'm kind of on your side that I feel like it's not going to work, but we can't judge until it's out. And like you said, there's a regional beta test for something like this. I never got into the collecting things. I think that it's the same reason I never got into Pokemon. I feel like I can feel the weight of what the game wants me to do, but just the weird noises you're making tend to make me think you
didn't get into Pokemon. Pokemon Go started to eat my life for a while there. And then I got into second wave Pokemon Go. See, that game design is really good. If you're into that kind of thing, the fact that it fits in with the story of Pokemon, of course, but then they got clever about the world events and like special little things happening. They just got me to the point where I was like speed walking down my street before like an incense candle burned out so I could get double XP. Like it was getting weird. Anyway, I'm okay now.
I don't think you are. I could feel the hunger in your voice to get back.
I wanted to level up my Pokemon, and I only had like 15 minutes on the incense, and I had to walk like an extra kilometer, so I had to go. People will understand.
Why did you not just turn the incense thing off?
Because once you pop it, it's popped, and it only lasts for an hour.
This incense is in the phone. It's not in Jess's house.
Oh, right. Yeah. I thought this was literally like incense on your desk. I was like, just don't light it or
everything
whatever.
I do is in video games, not in real life. Come on now, let's not be silly.
Amazing. Can you also explain to me what second wave Pokemon Go was?
Well, first wave Pokemon Go, I don't think this is the official term. First wave Pokemon Go is just like you're picking up Pokemon, right? Like, but now there's like, you can battle people, you can trade with people in like more nuanced ways. There's like all these different ways to evolve. It's like, there's like strats. It's complicated. It's just like, you want a very specific type of Pokemon that's going to evolve well. And it's just like, there's a whole meta game. It's really complicated. If you want to make it complicated, it's complicated.
Okay, right. And so everyone in chat is saying that I've showed my age because I didn't understand what is the incense reference? I don't.
It's a thing in the game that gives you more XP, which we as gamers need to live.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. No. Fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So incense in games, you're obsessed with this, and you are definitely playing the Lord of the Rings mobile game when it comes out.
I'll try.
Will, let's talk about a game that I'm sure you will be playing when it comes out.
Probably. I don't have much of a choice when it comes to things from a comic book realm, and Gotham Knights is a game that's coming out later this year. Got a bit of an update trailer with some footage and stuff, which we can talk about in a second, but the real meat of this new story is that the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions, which were announced at launch or at announcement of this game, have been cancelled. There's no real direct messaging from Warner Brothers. It's more just general. We've cancelled it to focus on the new gen games, which, considering a lot of games launching lately across generations have had issues, like your Horizons Forbidden West, Cyberpunks, all the rest of it. There's a lot of it's difficult to build across generations. It makes sense, but this is obviously a game that's been hyped for quite a while, and a lot of people now will not be able to play it because unless they have a PC, it will still be coming to PC, no matter what. And it's a weird situation, I guess, to be in. Like, obviously, we're gamers very deep into the industry, and we've sought out the PS5s and we're up to date, but these are still consoles that are difficult to get a handle on and expensive. And I think about like God of War, which I think is that still no, that's just PS5, isn't it? That's not cross generation.
Oh, good question.
I can't remember, sorry.
That's a really good question.
Because I think about that one, and it's like, if that's across two, your Sony fanboys have gone out and gotten it. Whereas you look at a game like this, and there's plenty of nerds that are going to be having whatever console they have, and they've lost a big part of their market.
It's also going to PS4.
There you go, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So like something like that, if they had dropped the PS4 side of things, I think they would be fairly safe in terms of their target market, because, as I said, Sony fanboys, which I am one, probably sought out a PS5 to play it on the newest version of the console. Whereas something like this, I know plenty of comic book fans that are still chilling with their Xbox One, and we're probably excited to jump in with friends and be able to play what is a game. We'll get to that.
It's definitely a game.
It's definitely a game. Nick, how are you feeling with this kind of drop? In terms of like, it's a big shakeup for the future of games.
Totally.
Too.
I mean, it would come down to one of two things. They can't get it running properly on the older consoles, or it will take too long to do. It'll get delayed too much, and it's not going to be worth it. So I think that there's a weird part of me. It's a very selfish part, and I don't actually feel like this, but a small part of me does, and I feel like we're all friends here, and I just need to be honest with myself. I kind of like that stuff got dropped, because it does feel like you get the new console. You want the thing that's just for the new consoles and for PC. Like, I want it to harness everything that the new consoles can do. Will it at this point, when they were building for so long with the older generation hardware in mind, and maybe it's just like, we've got some ray tracing and it loads a bit faster on the new ones. But that's the very selfish part of me. I think that ultimately, like, I guess you want to put out a game that does not feel compromised on a platform, right? So I think that if they genuinely go, we can't make this good on these older platforms, then it's better that they don't put it out there, as opposed to putting it out there as a cash grab, and then people buy it and are really pissed off because it's like, this is so significantly worse than anything else around. So I feel like they kind of did the right thing on this one, but it feels like you may not be as excited about the game as they are.
for me, it looks like a pared back version of a lot of superhero games. Like we're seeing, for audio listeners, a lot of vision of the combat, and it kind of looks like an early version of an Arkham game, or like I can see like the Spider-Man game, but before you're good at it. Like it's very clunky and stiff.
Yeah.
And like the other thing is like the UI is very mobile. There's like at the end of these kind of little missions, you get 300 of these random items, and that always as soon as it's not like 2 bits of something, I'm getting like transactional mobile feels from a game rather than and they show the menus later, and just as a UI boy, it just does not look appealing as a game. And then they come to the character design of someone like Jason Todd, who is Red Hood, and he just kind of looks like a big thumb. And like in comics, he doesn't really look like that. So like this stuff just looks real gross, and just it feels like a mobile game, which is really odd.
Jess, were you a fan of the Arkham series, and how are you feeling about this one?
I never really got into the Arkham games. I played bits and pieces of Asylum and the last one, but I am very aware of, like, especially, Rocksteady's deft touch. They're not involved with this one, obviously, but I think that made a huge difference to that world, and they poured a lot of love into it, and it's one of those things that just being aware of it from, like, when I do like what culture lists and stuff on that side, it's just like the attention to detail that studio has to that world and those characters, I think really built that into what comic book fans wanted to see, what Batman fans wanted to see. And I totally agree. I'm not 100% sure this is there. It's giving me sort of like Marvel's Avengers game vibes, 100%. Which apparently was not nearly as bad as I think a lot of people thought it was going to be. This looks worse. But I don't know. I mean, as to in the scheme of the old platform thing, it's like Cyberpunk, right? It's just like if it can't do it, then don't put it on the old platforms. But that's easy for me to say. I'm a PC gamer. I don't know. I'll shut up.
Totally. It's just a very privileged thing. We're very lucky to have these consoles, but I want it to run the best it can. So if that's how the best it can be, it's just the idea that they announced it on multiple things to drop them is,
and also
such
it's pretty
a
close.
Thing.
Like,
totally.
It did get delayed, but it's like it's coming out next year, right?
No, this is I think October this year. I think.
Okay, Suicide Squad was the one that got pushed to next year. Yeah, so it's like it's very late in the run to be able to go, and it's probably that final stretch where it's like the last 10% that makes the game, and they're like, no, that last 10% does not work on the old consoles.
Right.
I'm going to be the dissenting voice here, and shockingly, in a battle of Will and I am the one really excited for this. Now, I adored the Arkham games, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Knight. They've got their flaws. I don't see them. To me, they are just. Sometimes I think it's the same as the Spider-Man game, where it's just unabashedly a video game in a really fun way, in a sort of like, we're in this dense city, all you're going to do is just engage with, like, we're going to make it so filled with things that you can engage with in a very easy kind of way, as opposed to an open world fatigue style game, which I feel like, which is like, look how huge we've made this thing. The thing about the Arkham games is it was always really dense, and I could choose to ignore things if I wanted to, but I love Batman, I love Gotham, I love this kind of combat where it's sort of like the bouncing parkour fighting, bouncing between people. It's the only kind of brawler style combat that I really like. So I loved those. I'm still really excited for this, even though like watching this demo, it's a bit of a weird demo to put out as well, because there are literally times in this where you see whoever is playing the game like hit a button one too many times and swing a punch in the air and then sort of like stutter and turn around.
The boss fight is awful. They just keep getting hit, and they're just punching that shield. Like, show me how combos work in this game. Don't just keep getting punched.
It's really like a let's play of the game, which you don't normally see that much. But I still am kind of really into this just because there's something just so unabashedly video gamey about it. I agree that the UI looks fucking awful. It just looks so bad. But yeah, I will go back to Arkham anytime you ask me. So I am keen for this as well.
I think the story is going to sell me. Like the Court of the Owls stuff is really cool in the comics, and when they get to the back half of this demo, it's like, okay, you've got some cool, like, well designed stuff there. So it may be as with Avengers, the saving grace was a pretty good story. This may have a really good story that kind of builds a world that you want to be in. So, and of course, the other thing that we don't really talk about because I don't really show it here, it's co-op. So, jumping in with friends might be really cool to experience a story like this. So, yeah, it'd be sick.
This has been a problem that Batman has had to deal with its entire run, but the non-lethality stuff was hilarious because when they introduced Red Hood in this, he immediately whips out guns and starts shooting people. And the developer says he's got non-lethal rounds. But they still do a lot of damage. And then almost literally his next sentence is... these armor-piercing rounds. And I'm like, right, so the bullet is smart enough to pierce armor but stop at skin. Cool.
Yeah. No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
I mean, so many people's backs were broken at this demo. But yes, okay, well, that's coming out this year for next-gen consoles and PC only now. Mm-hmm. And while, again, from a position of privilege of having these consoles, I do think it's important that this is the stuff that moves games forward. So it's like, it's hard to be like, all games are the same and we're not seeing this big jump in whatever without going, okay, it's time to embrace this next stuff. What is shitty about it is that they had already announced that it is coming to those. So people with PS4s have been excited all the way up until 4 months before the game comes out. And they're like, oh shit, I can't play it now.
Literally the day pre-orders come out is when they announce you can't pre-order.
Totally, yeah.
So, sorry people.
And speaking of games that have disappointed people, let's talk about one of the... I don't know. Can you be disappointed by something that A, you thought would never actually come out, and B, you knew when it came out would still be bad? And it's Duke Nukem Forever. And this last week, Duke Nukem Forever, one of the worst video games of all time, one of the most ripped on, humiliating... This is everything we hate about games. Mocked video games of all time had a 2001 build of the game leaked online, and someone got their hands on it somehow and posted a few days ago. I've got this. Here's a little glimpse of it. I'm going to release the full thing in June, and then like 24, 48 hours, we're like, JK, here's the whole thing. Which seems like a weird hype cycle to send people through, but whatever. And what is amazing, like, there might be a lot of people watching who don't know how wild the development of this game was, because Duke Nukem Forever came out in 2011 and instantly was just like, oh, this is terrible and so crass and stupid and plays awfully and whatever. This build is from 2001. So this is 10 years earlier that the game was in this state. And the game was announced in 1997. And so it was a 14-year cycle where multiple E3s went by and people are talking about Duke Nukem Forever. Teams go dark. It changes hands. It changes engines. People get fired from the team publicly. It became like the ultimate vaporware story. And with every year that went by, I remember... the sentiment just being like, this game is going to be awful because we're getting further and further away from a time where this game was huge. Mm-hmm. And like Duke, I think people forget that like Duke Nukem there was like Doom and Duke, or Doom, Quake and Duke, I guess. And Duke did things that those other two games didn't. Duke was a really fun game. It was really beloved. It had awesome weapons. Like so many of the other games just had sort of like much more serious weapons. Duke always had really fun weapons, and it had personality. It had things you could interact with in the environment, which was like, oh my God, you can flush a toilet? What? That's something that you could never do in a video game. But then you cut to 14 years later and games are in such a different space and this comes out. But it is fascinating to see how this game looked in 2001, how even though this build is super buggy and it's really a vertical slice of what is the much broader game, and there's lots of faults to it, it is immensely playable, and you can see, okay, it took them 10 years to be able to actually ship something. And I think it's just a really fascinating insight into like how difficult it is to make games, how games can be in one stage and just change so rapidly, so much, because there's a lot in this new build that is not in the original game. There's some stuff like, which again, a lot of this shit will sound very boring and normal because it's 2022, but back then in 2001, interactable like in-game touchscreen stuff. There was like parasite-infected civilians and zombies, a Bioshock-style pipe dream hacking sequence thing. There was this like, you need to escort a civilian through this dark area and try to get them out. And all this stuff is stuff that we see in video games all the time, but back then is relatively new. Jess, you're not a big Duke Nukem fan, I believe?
No, I'm not a big Duke Nukem fan, but I'm I'm across the mythos, the legend,
Yeah, totally.
the great failure. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's an interesting case, and I think it's like what you said before. It wasn't even just the gameplay and everything like that. Like from everything I know about it, it's the entire tone that would have worked if it came out when it was supposed to, because it took so long. You don't think about things like that, where it's just like tastes and senses of humor and just like the zeitgeist and culture and what people find entertaining, like just stopped working when it finally got made, but it was still the game from way back when it was originally pieced together. I think stuff like that's really interesting to see how gamer tastes evolve, and where it's like even something as basic as like, this would have been hilarious if it came out 15 years ago and now it's not working.
Totally. And like, at what point do you make the call in development to be like, we have aged out of this kind of game? And how like how do you pivot that? Because it's kind of like, if you remove the crass humor and the over the top ridiculousness from Duke, it's not Duke anymore. It's kind of just like first person shooter, man. And so you almost need to go the other way and go, either he is a ridiculous cartoon character, fish out of water story in a world that wasn't designed for him anymore, or you go the sort of sad boy, gritty reboot, broken hero who like almost like Mickey Rourke the wrestler style, takes super seriously.
Or you like you hire like Justin Roiland and just go nuts. Just do what you do over there and just do it in here and make it silly. Because like
100%.
It's like these games as well. These are what I bring to every week on the Thursday night show. It's the Steam crazy retro shooter thing. So it's like the game itself, I'm sure they could make now with no effort. It's totally the story that's always going to be the issue with Duke Nukem.
And a dirty rumor in chat said, I would have enjoyed this when I was 19, not so much at 29. And you do go, like, the difference in age there and is just monumental. So it's also, depending on how they got their hands on this demo and stuff, that aside, I think it is awesome seeing stuff like this. I feel like enough time has passed that people aren't necessarily embarrassed by... They should be embarrassed by Duke Nukem Forever of what came out, but not embarrassed by like, oh, some work that was unfinished that wasn't really supposed to be seen. This is 20 years old, and there are some cool ideas and stuff in it that never saw the light of day. So, yeah, I wonder how much we'll get to see that sort of stuff moving forward. People are more clamped down on, because this would have just been sitting on someone's hard drive somewhere. Like that's totally what this was.
That's crazy.
Totally.
Which is wild. So. Those are the big news stories for the week. We got Lord of the Rings, we got Gotham Knights, and we got Duke Nukem Forever leak. There were also a ton of announcements that happened over the course of the week as well. It was a pretty busy week for announcements and delays. Developer Asobo shared a release date for Microsoft Flight Simulator, their Top Gun expansion, which has been delayed so many times because the film has been delayed so many times, Will. It's coming out on the 25th of May. Is this something you're going to check out?
Absolutely. I'm super keen. I mean, look at those reviews for the film. Like, imagine what this DLC is.
That film is getting insane reviews.
97% on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
They're saying it's like Tom Cruise's greatest movie ever.
Oh my gosh,
wild.
I'm so keen. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Okay.
The new Dead Space remake, speaking of something I'm super keen for, officially has a release date, with EA announcing during a stream that the updated version of the beloved survival horror game will be out January 27th, 2023, which feels like it's sort of hitting that same spot as that's a roundabout Did Resident Evil Village come out that early? I think it did. It came out sort of like early
Yeah.
last year. That sort of like made a bit of a drought. Get Scared. I'm super excited for that as well. And then also Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds, the mobile MMO, has a global release date of the 25th of May. So those are the things that got announced to come out. Some delays, as Will mentioned, the Gotham Knights PS4 and Xbox One versions got cancelled. Dying Light 2 Stay Human's upcoming story add-on has been delayed until September. And then the big one, which we'll talk about in a second, Starfield and Redfall, both originally penciled in for this year, with Starfield coming out in November, are now going to be coming out the first half of 2023. So that is literally all the video game news that has happened this week. There's nothing else you need to know.